Welcome to Under the Onion Skin, the podcast to get closer to independent animation directors and get to know some behind the scenes of their short films. My name is Giulia, and each time I talk to a different director about a short film they made. With this podcast, I hope to be able to capture a glimpse of what I love mostly about festivals, to have something to listen to when we're back to our regular lives, but above all to celebrate beautiful films, talented artists and storytellers. Welcome to Under the Onion Skin. In this episode, I'm chatting with French animation director Stephen Vuillemin about his short film A Kind of Testament. We had the chance to chat at the Fantoche Festival in Baden, Switzerland. A Kind of Testament is a very detailed animation with Stephen animated mostly on his own, dedicating overall 6 years of his life to it. In this episode, among other things, we talk about motivation, creating a portfolio to attract clients, and stalking.
Okay.
And I think it's great that we never talked before, because it's very honest.
But I think for me, I'm quite an introvert too, but I find it's more easy to be in front of the public.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it's okay. I watched your film.
Yeah.
First of all, I heard it took you 6 years.
Yes. Yeah.
And you did it all by yourself.
No, I did like a little more than half by myself. So in the first 5 years, I was alone. And last year, I finished it with a studio. It's called Remembers Studio in Paris.
Okay.
So at this time, I had a few people coming in and help me.
Yeah.
But I did like more than half by myself.
And this 5 years was also during COVID and pandemic.
So it was. It started in 2016.
Yes.
And then I kept doing it throughout the pandemic.
Yeah.
I finished it this year in 2023, at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And also this made me think, usually at least what I saw a lot from you are very short formats like GIFs.
Yeah.
And then this short film is a short film, but it's quite long. It's 16 minutes or so. It's not, and it's quite a commitment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but even the GIFs, I think it's a short format, but it's also the idea. Like, so the first things that I made that I published online and I kind of started my career as an animator director. It was the animated comics.
Yeah.
So it was comics, but also it was animated. So it was a shorter format than a short film, but still it was very condensed and very packed because it was not just a comic, but it was a comics, but also it was animated.
Yeah.
So I think it's always a lot of density. Even with the smaller things that I do, I tend to make it very complex.
Yeah, also graphically, right?
Yeah.
That was also my thought, it's so rich, every frame, every image is so rich in details and colors and textures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and teams too, it's always it's always a lot of things going on at the same time. So I don't know why I'm doing it this way, but I'm very bad at doing simple. I always make it very complex.
But you knew since the beginning that it would have been so long, like the 16 minutes long?
I didn't know the exact length, but I knew it would be between 15 and 20 minutes.
Okay.
And then when I did the animatic, it wasn't the exact same length, but then when I started doing an animation, it changed the length because sometimes when you animate, you want to add some time.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm really impressed because it's a real commitment to realize alone it's going to take you so much time. And I feel with long projects, I think for me the longest was 4 years, and it's still a lot. And for long projects on your own, you really have to keep your motivation, your focus.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you do that?
I was super happy with my idea since the beginning, and when I started making it, I was 30 years old. So it was the year I turned 30.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, when you reach a decade, you start to question your life and you want to have a better life. And I think it really made me think, I still haven't made a short film. And until I was 30, it was a sort of a dream to make a short film, but it was seeming very difficult to do.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I needed a lot of money, I needed to find a producer, I needed to find like the right person to work with, and I needed to pitch a project, and I really don't like to do this kind of stuff. So I was playing the Euromillion like for all the time I was working before I reached 30, and I was hoping that I win the Euromillion so I can start making my film with the money. So when I turned 30 and I started like questioning myself, I thought actually it's like I may never win the Euromillion. But I had been working in animation for almost 10 years at this point, and I realized that I could actually do the film by myself if I wanted to, and that I didn't need the money. All the thing that I needed was time.
Yeah.
Because I could do like all of the animation, all of the design, the storyboard. I could do all of it by myself. So I started making it, and I started really committing to making it. So I almost stopped going out. I was like mostly focused on making the film. Then I was living in London when I started, so it was harder to commit to focus on making the film because London is very expensive. So I had to keep doing freelance jobs so I can keep living.
Yeah.
So I thought that if I moved to Taiwan, I had been to Taiwan before, I really love this country, and I knew I would be away from like the animation scene in London, so maybe I wouldn't be I wouldn't have so many jobs. And also Taiwan is much cheaper than London, so I thought I could live longer with my savings there. So I found like ways to focus on making the film that were not involving working with money. So I moved to Taiwan. I was there 2 years. So I kept making the film.
So it means 2 years just you doing the film without commission and clients' jobs?
I did have a few clients' jobs because I still had to make some money, but not so many. So I was mostly focused on making the film.
Okay.
And then I came back to France just before COVID. And then the year of COVID, I was at my parents' in lockdown. So I was still working on the film alone. And at this point in time, I was starting it was almost like 5 years in. And I was starting to feel like maybe it would be nice to finish it a little earlier than, And the production company remembers they had opened a few years prior, and they were starting to put out some projects, and I looked at it like in that time, and I thought that it was a good fit for my film to be with them. So after the lockdown, I went to Paris and I met them because they had approached me prior. And at the time when they approached me, I was still in that mindset. I really wanted to make it alone. But after like seeing what they were doing as the projects they were putting out, I thought it was a really good fit. Also, I knew the one of the founders, Hugo, Bienvenue. So I met them, then I saw they made me visit the place, and I thought it was really nice, and then I showed them my project and we started working together. So the final year, it was very intense because that's when we started to get fundings.
Yeah.
So we got to have a deadline, so
Yes.
we had to finish it on time, so it was a very different mindset.
And you also got to have a team at
Yes,
that point.
Yeah, so at that point it was also about like managing people and time. Whereas before, when I was alone, it was just like I could like just extend the time as much as I needed to make it as beautiful as I could. So, and I think when I started working with them, it was already in a place where I thought it was fine, and yeah.
And when you started to work with them, which stage or which percentage of animation was done?
I'd say maybe 60% of the timeline was like completely finished.
Yeah.
So all of the scene, the final scene in the bathroom, that we did with Remembers. This wasn't started when we started working together, as well as the scene with the veterinary and the scene where she gives birth. So all of these we did together in the final year. So it's a little less than half of the film.
And also music and sound were made with them.
Music and sound were made with them with the budget, but the people I worked with, I knew them from before starting working with them. So I wanted to,
before, Okay, interesting. And how many animators, or like how many people did you have in your team?
So it's quite when you see the credits, it's a lot of names. So it's been a lot of people who came helping. Especially in the final months, because it was like we really had to finish it. So a lot of people, they came to give a hand. So some like that was really nice, because there was some very really talented people, like some people who are directing movies or who are like very like high-end animators. They came just to give a hand, like finishing like the cleanups, like giving a hand on the colors. So because they were in the studio, and the studio is really nice because there's a lot of people who are working with them like very often. So it's a lot of mutual help.
That's very good.
So yeah, it was a lot of people who came like for shorter periods of time just to give a hand. There was some interns too, and there was I think 3 animators who came for a longer period of time. So there was like Tom Rameau, one of the animators. He was here I think 6 months with me. So he made a lot of like the animation of the bathroom. Then I was doing it too. I did most of the cleanup myself because it was really hard to like replicate my way of doing cleanups.
Okay.
But still, Tommy did a lot of cleanup.
Is it TV paint or how?
It's animate.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then a lot of compositing with some textures.
Yeah, the compositing, we did it. So I did the compositing of my scenes, the ones I did by myself, and then in the end, I had one of my friends in the studio, Mathilde Loubès. She's a director too. She just came like in a week or 2 to give me a hand on the compositing. So it was really nice because it was like the final mount. It was like a really a headache like to finish it on time. And then I had like Jocelyn Charles, another animator. He animated like the Giving Bars scene. So I did some of like the layouts, and he did the animation. Then I went back to do the cleanup. So it was a lot of. It was like when I had like the team, it was. I really wanted to have as much consistency as possible because it had to feel like it was the same person who did it all, because it's the story of the film too. So I put my hand in like all of the shots, like even the ones I didn't animate, I did like some cleanup, then I polished some bits. And
Wow, so you basically did the whole cleanup by yourself?
No, I think there's some shots I didn't do the cleanup, but I did some little polishing parts. Little fixes.
Okay. But still quite impressive, I think.
Yeah, and it's a very complex cleanup. So yeah, most like all of the images I've touched, like there's no.
And before you mentioned that, let's say that the initial motivation or the initial push was, you reached 30 years old and you want to make a short film. Is also the story, is it somehow related to that, like to your...
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so it's because it's about like the film is about like making choices, like life choices. What do you want to do with your life, and about like you may die, you will die eventually. So I think it's very related to my choice of like committing to making a film for 6 years.
Yes.
And also I find that the film is like it was almost like a testament to my animation, like drawing skills. So it was a bit of a way to show off, like in a way. So it was a way for me to just like to give away all of what I could do. So that's why it's so rich too. It was about like making it as like impressive as possible. Have like all of these colors all of these like tricky animation. And in a way, it's like one of my references was the genre of painting that is like vanities.
Yeah.
So if you know, like Renaissance paintings that were like very technical with like flowers, and so it's in the themes of the film too. It's like you show off like your skills as a painter, but also you know that it's pointless and you're going to die eventually. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's
So
It's
yeah,
true.
it's the story of the film too. So it's like a woman who makes like you spend years animating, and eventually she dies, and then you have this voiceover who doesn't even understand the point and who doesn't even see the beauty in it. So it's like, yeah, it's just the same principle as for Vanity.
Yeah. I'm wondering now, because you said, of course, it's also about you, the character fighting with death, realizing that the time is limited, having to make choices. How did you choose the character, and how did the character end up being a woman? Since it's a personal story, but
I think
not.
it's a good question. So since before I started making the film, so I also make a lot of comics. I realized that when I was, so my comics and my stories, so it's the same for the film. My starting point is never the characters. I never think of, okay, it's the story of Peter, whatever. It's more about situations. So it's what would happen if this situation happened to someone. And I realized that when I was writing, thinking of a situation, then I needed a character to show that situation. I tended to make them being a man. And I thought it was interesting that it was like so whenever I was like drawing a new story, like a comics, and the new character would come in the frame, I would tend to draw that character as a man, and I thought it was interesting that neutral was a man, and maybe it's because I'm a man, but also in culture, like most films, like it's something that's very talked about, especially these days. But most stories, the main protagonist is a man.
yeah.
And even when it's written by a woman, so most of the time, sometimes it's a man. I think it's a little it's weird and it's interesting. So at some point before starting the film, I think it was 2014, I decided that I would give myself constraints when writing a story. So neutral would be a woman. So every time I write a story and I didn't need a new character, it's automatically a woman. So unless there is a really, really good reason that it's a man, then it's a man. But most of the time, I don't really find a good reason for him to be a man. So my stories, all of my comics, it's 99% of the characters are women.
That's interesting that you gave yourself these rules or these limits. Is
Yeah.
that because you felt like you needed some, sometimes these constraints are giving you creativity, or why?
Yeah, I think so. Also, I think it was interesting, like politically, because it's like, And I thought it turned out to be very interesting in terms of aesthetics too, because it really creates a very eerie kind of world. And most people don't seem to. It's interesting you're asking me the question, because it's not that many people who really think about it, but it's something I really do on purpose.
Yeah, and also why I thought about it. I don't know if you already heard this comment or if you thought about it. Maybe you did. When I started to watch it, and the narrator finds herself on the internet, right?
Yeah.
First thought for me was some kind of, she's a victim, kind of a stalking.
Yeah.
Because, and in my mind in the beginning, it was a man animating. So the woman is always in the, unfortunately, or in our culture, in our society, very often is portrayed as the victim or like a prey, right?
Yeah. So also that's one reason why I decided to use this constraint, is that I don't I find that if I remove the men from the stories, it takes away also all of these considerations.
That's true.
So it's just like women with women relationship. So you don't have, because I'm not so interested in talking about like these like power dynamics.
Yeah.
And like these very heavy topics, so it makes it much easier if all of the characters are female.
Yeah.
So it's almost as if my female, they were like gender neutral, because there's no gender relationship, because there's no gender in my world. It's only female.
Yeah, I agree. I also felt like that when you find out it's a woman, you're like, okay, then it's also almost
Yeah.
a surprise because I understand
Mm.
what was behind it. Okay.
But it's funny because the comics I make, so it's like 99% women, and at some point I post them on Instagram. At some point there was one male character, and in the comments there was a lot of people, like people who know me, who were like saying, this guy, it's you, isn't it?
Because it's the only man.
Because it's the only man. But I found it was funny because most of the time, like when I write like a female characters, they are like inspired by me. Like the thing that happened to them, it's like things that would happen to me too. We have the same centers of interest. But it's funny that most people, since it's a female character and I'm a guy, they tend to think it can't be the same person.
It is interesting, right? Yeah, I think it's a good point. Finding your name online and finding someone else taking your pictures, etc. How did this get into the plot when thinking about time is limited, we have to make choices?
So I think it's... I think when I first wrote it, I don't know if I really thought about it in terms of like logic, but I think maybe it's something that came after. But so in the film there's two characters, and I think so. One is like the embodiment of art, like and fiction. So it's the animator. So she makes animation, and she doesn't live because she's dead. And when she makes the animations, I really made a point in saying that she was sacrificing all of this time. She was using the time she was spending drawing, not living. So she was like just sacrificing her time to do art. And the other one is the embodiment of life. Like, so she has a child. She goes out. She's buying clothes, and and I thought that social media is a good way to show it, because a lot of people, they use it as a way to document their own life. So they will show their children. They will show like what they buy as clothes. And I think it's funny because it's almost a form of documentary. So when you think about it, it's not really life too. It's also a form of storytelling.
Yeah.
So actually the two characters are storytellers. One is like in fiction and the other one is documentaries.
Yeah. And you said that the one that was animating was not living because was doing this, right? Like was dedicating all the time left for animating and almost giving life to another character rather than live its own life. Yeah. And now that you mentioned social media also made me think you end up in some, I don't know, big famous person, a VIP or an influencer, whatever, and everybody, like all the followers are looking at their life.
Yeah.
Not living their own life, but looking at someone else living the life. Is it also something that was into your head when planning?
But I think it's not so much. I find that I consume a lot of this, so I follow some people that I don't know and I just like their pictures, but I find it's a way of it's not so much about their life. I find it's almost a form of performance. And I don't really have a problem with it. I think most of the time it's interesting, it's entertaining.
Yeah. But you mean like a conscious performance, like?
I don't know if it's conscious for everyone, but I think most people, they have to be conscious up to a certain because they still take the picture, so it's
it's like having a character. Yeah, for sure. I think so.
So I think it was very interesting with my story too, because it's a lot of fictions that are embedded together. So it's like the storytelling of one's own life on social media, then it's interpreted by someone who's doing animation based on it, and then it's the voiceover. And the voiceover is supposed to be real. Like when you don't know anything about the film, you are supposed to think that it's a real story that really happened to someone. But it's actually a fiction, so it's a lot of...
Yeah, but I actually like it now that we talked about it a little more, because it's not just, as you said in the beginning, about, realizing that our life is limited and we have to make choices and death is around the corner, blah, blah, blah. But it's also in relationship or in perspective with this life we have, or like this perspective we have with the social media and internet and digital presence, you know.
Yeah, and also I think maybe if it's like related to my own life, when I started making the movie, I think I was a little too much, but I really wanted to make a point in distancing myself from even having a social life and really committing to making the film.
Yeah, I also wanted to say, you were really living that.
But at the same time, it's for me it was a really good experience.
Yeah.
So, and I think some people, when I read like reviews of the film, I find that most people they tend to who write reviews. I think that reviews are very interesting, and it's always very nice to read them. But I find that most of the people, maybe who see the film, they tend to empathize with the young woman, and to feel like, oh, what happened to her is really weird. Why did she get stalked? But in my point of view, I'm feeling like I'm more like the old woman because I'm the one who spent years making animation.
Yeah, that's also what I wanted to say. Like in the film, even you knew it from probably since the beginning that you would have spent so many years working on it. There is the animator dedicating years of life to making this film.
Yeah.
And that's also you, because that's what you did with this film, no?
Yeah. And it's a choice, and it was a deliberate choice for me to spend like most of my energy doing the film, and instead of like working, having children, whatever.
Yeah.
And it made me very happy. So I was like, it was 5 really nice years, because I was feeling like I was making something that I was really pleased with it the whole time, and it was amazing.
So it was overall a positive experience and experiment, or did you do it to test it, like to see how it is, or you knew it that you wanted to have this 5-6 years of isolation and that's what you needed, and that's...
Yeah, I think it's more like that. Yeah. I think at this point in my life it was making sense. I wasn't really questioning it. And I was really happy. Because before I start making the film, I was mostly doing. I think I was mostly unsatisfied with my work as an animator, because I was mostly doing commissions, and I was really craving doing something personal. So I was doing like some little comics on the side, but I was feeling like it wasn't enough. So when I started making the film and I found out that I could do it by myself, it was really pleasing.
Mm-hmm. I'm impressed because I think it takes a lot of not just determination and motivation, but also focus to be sure of that for such a long time and work on your own. Did you have sometimes some moments of down where you're like, no, what am I doing? This is absurd.
No.
Yeah, that's incredible.
No, but when I reached the producer, I had like a time when I was feeling like maybe it was too long and I would have liked to start doing something else and maybe finish it and show it to people. But I was never doubting the quality of the.
No, not the quality, but I know like in a long process, at least for me, what I heard from other directors as well, it's quite common to have these ups and downs, and maybe one day, 1 week, you are thinking, yeah, sure, it's good, but it's taking too long, or it's draining my soul, or... But
No, it wasn't draining my soul at all. Also because when I was doing it alone, I was outside of the industry, so I didn't have any time constraints.
Yeah.
So I think actually that was very different from the context of being in a production and having like all of this pressure. Because at the time it was almost feeling like a hobby. I was feeling like I was like making like people who make like crazy miniature models of the Eiffel Tower with matches. Or I was feeling like I was doing this kind of thing. I was just like building like a crazy like huge thing, because it's like so much work, and I was doing it for years, and it was really nice. Yeah.
It's awesome to hear that. Not for real. Good job. But in this process, even if you were doing it like basically for yourself, didn't have time constraints, didn't have any producer or anybody from the outside. The goal was still to show it to the world.
But I think this is it's getting a little personal, but I think it's very weird, like the relationship. I don't know if it's the same for everyone who does like art, but it's like and especially I was feeling it when I was making the film, that at the same time I was not very concerned with showing it to people. I was just feeling like I was doing it for myself, and it was going to be really nice. But also, I don't know. I don't know if it's really this feeling or if it was also a feeling of wanting to show off at some point and come up with like something crazy that I had done in my.
Yeah.
But it's quite I can't really say myself what I was feeling.
I'm asking this also because the animator in the film, she didn't reach out to the young woman. The young woman found the website by chance. So that's even more interesting that this person, the character in the film, the old woman, decided to invest so much time without the expectation of being seen. Somehow, even if it's published online. So she still published it online. So maybe she was hoping that people see it after her death. Or maybe she was never happy. She was very. She was waiting for it to be better and better and better in order to show it to the. Right. I'm just imagining. Like how do you say? Like a very perfectionist. Who wants to get better and better and better until you can show it to the world.
It could be this.
Yes. Do you think you are a perfectionist?
Yes, definitely. No, especially with this film. So this film, I was really feeling like it had to be like perfect.
Like it looks like it. Like every shot is like a painting.
Yeah. So but on the side, like the comics I make, sometimes it's like very fast, and it's like the opposite of this. And then I can publish it. I can make it in 2 days and then publish it the next day, and it's a nice feeling too.
But that's maybe also why, like, you need some kind of balance, where you want to do both and try both.
But now with the film, I feel like I'm really happy. I spent so much time making it, and it's I feel like I've made it, and I almost don't. I feel like I don't need to do any other films now. Yeah.
That's good. So it means did you have the feedback you hoped to get?
Yeah. It's nice. Yeah, it's going to lots of festivals. Yeah, it's got some awards. So it's not the feedback I hoped. I'm really happy it's going well, because I think if I had spent so much time doing it and it wasn't a success in that sort of way, maybe I would be a little disappointed. So it's really nice.
Well, if it's worth anything, before even I knew we were having this interview, or even yesterday at the Apero, many people were talking without knowing that we had the interview, and were telling me to watch your film because it was very good.
Nice.
So I think that's nice. If I heard already your name and your film's name in the last 24 hours a couple of times. so when you came to me for the interview, I thought, okay, then it has to happen. That's good.
Cool.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, nice.
But so you said that maybe you don't need to make any other film after that.
No, I don't know, but I feel like I because when I started making the film, I was already doing animation for almost 10 years.
Yes.
So I feel I really had it. I had 10 years to build up a desire to make a film. Then I made the film for 6 years, and now I feel like okay, it's done. I don't feel like and I feel like I've made the best film I could make. So I don't see how I can make a better film. I don't know.
I think it's normal to want and need a little bit of a break, for sure.
Yeah.
But this makes me want to ask, do you miss, or did you miss client jobs and commissions in that time, or now?
I was really happy signing up with Remembers, the company who helped me finish the film, because in the meantime, I went to meet them, and then they went looking for foundings. So in that time, I wasn't working on the film. And they got me a commission for Chanel. So that was in the middle of making the film, and it was my first production commission of this scale. for such a big client, and that was really nice. And it was nice having a little break, like doing a really short project like that.
And it was also your first commission in 5 years or so.
No, I did some commissions, but it was mostly editorial illustration.
Okay.
So it's super small, and it's
Fast.
yeah.
Okay.
And I did some animation commissions too. So it wasn't in my style. It was just like helping someone doing their film. Yeah. But now I feel like I would be really happy doing some commissions. So so I don't have to think too much. I don't have to put anything too personal out. Yeah.
Because also you said you put everything you could and you wanted in this film. That's you. It's all your skills or your capabilities and everything in there. So do you feel now this is more like your business card, or like the kind of style and look and vibe that you would like clients to ask for?
Yes, yeah, that would. Yeah, and I think I can even make an edit of the film that looks like a commercial.
Yeah, it's definitely cool.
Yeah, I think it has like some of these like very sexy.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Cool, yeah.
Cool.
Last question, unrelated. Do you like onions?
Yes, I love onions.
How do you like onions?
I love them the Japanese way.
What's the Japanese way?
With mirin and soy sauce.
So it's like in a pan?
Yeah. So you can eat like in most, like a lot of Japanese recipes, they use onions. So you chop them and then you saute them, and then you add a drop of mirin and soy sauce. But also it's not just onions, so it's like the basis of the recipe, but most of the time it's with something else like chicken, eggs.
Oh, nice, I didn't know that. I'm going to try it out.
Yeah.
Nice, so it's like a base of, you don't eat them like this alone, you need to add something.
But you can still, if you don't have anything in your house and you have like one onion, you can just like saute it with some soy sauce and mirin and have it with rice, and it's okay. It's not a proper recipe, but it's... But
nice.
if you do this with chicken and then in the end you add some eggs, that's oyakodon. It's with rice. It's really good. Yeah.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Merci.
Merci.
I hope you enjoyed this chat I had with Stephen. You can find him and his work online at the links you will find in the show notes. I'm going to post on my Instagram stories and newsletter Creative Crave, as I usually do, some behind the scenes and links about the featured short film. Usually there you can see the trailer, some work in progress, and eventually also the link of the film once it will be released online. This was Under the Onion Skin. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time with another director and a short animated film. Ciao!